Well, it's surprised some folks, but we're getting reports now that Joe Biden plans to jump on the Wall Street tax wagon. This as his 2020 rivals Bernie Sanders and Liz Warren roll out tax plans targeting the wealth, so-called wealth taxes. We've got Tracy Grasco here with more on these plans. Hey, Tracy.
Yes, Neil, former Vice President Joe Biden now considering a plan that could tax financial transactions like the sale of stocks and bonds. That's according to the Washington Post. Now, if Biden moves forward with this proposal, it would be a major step closer to the principles of his two biggest rivals, Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders. Both Warren and Sanders unveiled plans to tax the wealth of the richest Americans while also pushing for significant taxes on corporations, Wall Street, and estates. Warren's plan would place a 2% tax on households worth more than $50 million and a 3% tax on those with $1 billion, affecting the top 70,000 households. Meanwhile, Sanders' plan calls for up to an 8% wealth tax on the richest Americans. All of this as the latest Quinnipiac poll has Warren virtually tied with Joe Biden, Sanders trailing closely behind them. Neil?
All right, that's an interesting, a lot of money there,
Yes,
targeting just a few individuals here. Market analyst Dan Gelcher joins us. He saw that 50 million thing and he's, not really. But you attack then, you attack everybody. He's back along with us, as well as Nathan Rubin and Danielle Shay. What do you make of that?
Well, I think it's a mistake, a political mistake by Joe Biden to go down this path because it's going to affect so many people. When you look at the wealth tax, well, let's say Bernie Sanders' plan, that's going to affect about 180,000 people, and Elizabeth Warren's plan is 70,000. So it's a much tighter group politically to target for more taxes. I mean, I know that's not good for you, Neil, you and your rich pals.
Incredible.
But
that's where the money is.
That is where the money is.
So it's you guys in the top 10th of a 10%.
Well, it's lonely at the top.
It's lonely at the top. What would the fallout be? You worry that it would trickle down, right?
Oh, absolutely. The fallout would trickle down. And I mean, for me, I look at what billionaires actually do with their money and why are we hating on billionaires? I mean, look at Bill and Melinda Gates. They have an amazing foundation. They do work all over the world. And then, you have Richard
Bill
Branson.
Gates has come out and said he's okay with paying more. And I don't know this much more. And I do know that, rich investors and billionaire investors like Ken Fisher was sitting where you're sitting say, we're a crafty bunch. We can find ways around this.
Oh, that's absolutely true. I mean, there's multiple different ways to get around that, different places you can stash money, something like that, and maybe not legal, but they may find a way.
All right, so we used to have a top tax rate in this country, 70, 90%,
under a Republican president.
Right, we're talking about Eisenhower. You weren't even alive. But so that's the argument for doing it. Of course, very few paid at that rate in those days, as you know. But that it sends a bad signal. And if they pull money out or do the kind of things that break with something they've gotten used to, Katie barred the door, you say?
Well, there are two things that I think that we really need to fundamentally understand. When Donald Trump talks about making America great again, he's talking about the 50s and 60s when we had such a booming middle class. The reason we had that, or one of the reasons we had that, is because we had higher effective tax rates. The richer people and the higher income earners were paying more to support the growing middle class. I think we can get back there. I think that's better for a lot of people.
But you're assuming that money that they pay and the government would get that money is going to make it better for those on the lower rungs, right?
And I want to make it clear that that money is not going to be just taxed and spent. It would be taxed and invest.
How do you know? Has the government been good at that in the past?
Every dollar spent on infrastructure yields a return. Every dollar spent on public education yields a return.
Look at the history of government spending under Republicans and Democrats. A lot of pissing away, right?
There is absolutely room to cut waste, but I want to make something clear here. When you have deficits that are reaching $1 trillion, any good businessman or accountant knows that the way that you reduce that deficit is you can decrease spending and expenditures or increase revenue coming in. And the way that you do that as a government is to increase taxes.
Well, we've found also when we cut taxes, increase revenue. You're quite right. Both parties will spend that revenue. And then some Republicans have done that as well. It's happening in spades under this one, happened on the last one. I get that. But what is the Republican argument going to be to this? Because to his point, the history isn't great with Republicans, watching the budget store.
Well, as far as the wealth tax goes, I think the Republican response is going to be, this has not worked effectively anywhere in the world. So point to a system that has implemented a wealth tax and it's worked. As a matter of fact, France just pulled back on this wealth tax in 2017. So there's no proof that it actually
You're not
works.
saying imitate France.
Well, I'm saying
Imitate the new France.
Yeah, the new France. I'm saying, why would we go down the road of looking at systems that have not been successful with this type of tax, Neil?
Well, I'm taking a bigger picture look at this. We spent trillions of dollars fighting the war on poverty. God bless the good hearts and the good intentions behind it. The percentages really have not changed since that. And I'm wondering, before we agreed to stick anyone with a higher tax bill, should we think that through? Should we think about precisely how this will be done and whether this time it will be done differently? Because the track record is dicey.
Yes, there needs to be a plan how it should be done, where the money's going to go to. And exactly like you said, there's only two ways to fix the deficit, right? You have to increase taxes or decrease the spend. For me, I think it's a better idea to decrease the spending instead of increasing the tax.
But you can trigger a boom. We had an internet boom under Bill Clinton. I mean, I'm not saying he was responsible for that, but that did solve a lot of problems there. So how is any of this going to spur a boom?
Well, I think first and foremost, Dan mentioned the numbers of 180,000 being taxed a little bit more under these plans, but you look at our current
That would be a lot more.
You look at the current state, we have 500,000 Americans going bankrupt every year due to rising healthcare costs. So this money that we're going to raise would pay for their healthcare plans, whether it's Medicare for all.
Would you pay more taxes to get all of that yourself?
Absolutely. I pay a very high effective tax rate, higher than millionaires and billionaires do, because the way that they earn their income
Capital
is
gains,
passive
dividend,
through the stock market, and I
Fair
work
enough.
for my money.
All right. Very, very good. I am relieved, though, that you're paying a lot in taxes. There is a God, I guess. Kidding. All right. Do you know how many people were apparently listening in on the president's phone call with the Ukrainian president?